Week 1. The Mirror of Money. The reflection you don't see. Most people think of money as neutral. Paper, numbers, digits on a screen. But nothing that carries emotion is ever neutral. Money is the mirror no one realizes they're looking into. Every time you open your banking app, every time you swipe a card, every time your stomach tightens at the thought of a bill or a dream purchase, you're not reacting to numbers. You're reacting to the reflection of your beliefs. Money doesn't just measure value, it reveals it. It shows you, moment by moment, what you actually believe you deserve, how much trust you have in life, and whether you see yourself as supported or alone. You don't have a money story. You have a self story that money happens to mirror. The illusion of out there. We're taught to believe that money lives out there, in markets, paychecks, clients, algorithms, luck. We chase it, blame it, hoard it, pray for it. And yet, all the while, money is responding to the vibration of our own being, like a perfectly tuned echo chamber. If you've ever noticed that some people seem to always land on their feet, while others struggle no matter how hard they work, what you're really seeing isn't luck. It's alignment. One person radiates permission. They've decided that receiving is safe. Another radiates resistance. They've decided that receiving is dangerous. The world simply reflects those inner contracts back through circumstance. A tale of two dudes. I have a friend who grew up around money. He's told me stories about how he watched his father work on the books at the dinner table, laboriously balancing checkbooks, building savings, and strategizing how to build businesses. His family went on vacation trips to Disney, owned several properties and businesses, and even today, money seems to come to him easily and freely. Note that I said seems to come to him easily and freely, but we'll talk about that later. I grew up with a father who had a vision, but was never good with money. He tried to start a business, but the location was bad. He'd invest in a property, but the market was bad. He'd find solid employment, but then get laid off. Financially, my father's 30s and 40s, when I was growing up, was a roller coaster. Today, my financial life is a roller coaster. Big windfalls, hard-earned wins, bad business decisions. It seems like money doesn't come to me easily and freely. Note that I said seems again. It's easy to think that the two of us, coming from very different backgrounds, would have very different relationships with money, but the opposite is true. We both have the exact same relationship with money. It's the relationship with ourselves and the world around us that are different. The truth is that my friend grew up in a world of business owners and moneymakers. I grew up in a world of a risk taker with poor timing. Those childhoods shaped each of us differently. In his case, he works insanely long hours, takes massive risks, hardly ever stops moving, and his investments and portfolio reflect that. In my case, I chose a safer path of military service and then civil service. I have periods where I've worked insanely hard, but also periods of insane boredom. And guess what? My investments and portfolio reflect that. So, since our portfolios are so different, you might think that our relationships with money are different, but they aren't. Everyone has the same relationship with money. Money is a mirror. Simple. Done. Then what's the difference between me and my friend? He grew up in a world of hustle and money. I grew up in a world of trusting and poverty. He grew up feeling he was worthy of having all the abundance he could handle. I grew up rationing the milk in the fridge. He decided to strike out on his own using the skills he learned in his childhood of acquiring properties, flipping them, and owning businesses. I decided to strike out on my own by joining the Air Force and finding as much security as I could. He took big risks, hustled, and gathered big wins. I took one big risk, did what I was told, and gathered a pension. In both cases, money simply showed us who we were being, what the money shows. Money mirrors emotion first, circumstance second. Here's what the mirror tends to reveal. If your inner state is fear or loss, then the outer reflection is bills that arrive too fast. Shame becomes underpayment or invisibility. Control becomes micromanagement. Openness becomes uninspected opportunities. And gratitude becomes flow, support, and reciprocity. This isn't punishment or reward. It's resonance. The mirror doesn't judge you. It just shows you the frequency you're broadcasting. And because most of us learned our frequency from the people who raised us, our families, religions, cultures, we often mistake that inherited signal for truth. A moment of seeing. Think back to a recent moment when money stirred emotion in you. Maybe a late payment, an impulse purchase, a surprise refund, or the quiet anxiety that comes from checking your account balance. What if that moment wasn't random? What if it was your consciousness saying, look, this is what you still believe? A bounced check might reflect fear of instability learned in childhood. A sudden windfall might reflect a growing sense of trust. A conflict over money in a relationship might reveal the power dynamics you secretly fear repeating. If you pay attention, money will show you exactly where your self-worth wavers and where it's ready to expand. The practice of observation. This week's experiment is simple, but it's the foundation of everything that follows. For the next 7 days, become a witness. Every time you spend money, receive money, think about money, or feel emotion about money, pause for 5 seconds. Notice what arises before you act and after you act. Ask yourself, what is this moment reflecting about how I see myself? You don't need to fix it yet. Just watch the mirror. You'll start to notice patterns. A tiny wave of guilt every time you spend on yourself. A twinge of resentment when someone else earns easily. Relief that feels too good when an expense disappears. Each of these is data. Each shows you a story you've been living inside. The first glimpse. When you stop trying to control the reflection and start studying it, something subtle shifts. You begin to realize that money was never the problem. Your perception of yourself through money was. It's like realizing that the mirror in your bathroom never made you look tired. It just reflected what was already there. As you go through the first week, remind yourself gently, money is not against me. It is for me. A mirror showing me who I believe I am. Journal prompts. What emotion do I most often feel when I think about money? What story does that emotion tell me about who I believe I am? What would change if I began to see money as a mirror, not a master? This week's experiment. The 1-week money mirror challenge. Write down every money interaction this week, large or small, and note the feeling that came with it. At week's end, reread your notes. Ask, what pattern do I see? What does it say about my relationship with receiving, giving, control, and trust? Closing reflection. You are not trying to fix your finances this week. You're learning to see. Seeing clearly is the beginning of mastery. Because when you see what's being reflected, you gain the power to change what's being projected. Next week, we'll explore where those reflections come from. The invisible inheritance that shapes how you think and feel about abundance. Welcome to the experiment.